And Mr. Monty DiZimilio, can I just say on behalf of the North American Ferrari Dealers Association, how proud we are to welcome the first deliveries of your new flagship automobile. And the boys in Southern California, they're just going to be so excited that you named it for them. The LA Ferrari. It's perfect. Oh, well, I'm sorry, sir. I just assumed it was LA Ferrari. Well, yeah, it's an easy mistake to make. I mean, it's hot, and it's going to have assholes in it. Hello and welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. It's been such a long time since we recorded a programme. I feel I should reintroduce ourselves to each other. Hello, Richard. I'm Gareth. I used to do this podcast. How you doing? Yeah.
I think we met before.
Yeah, I think it was about
20 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Music compilation
It used
thing.
to be called Podcast.
Yeah, that's right. And you are...
Zog. Hey, Gareth, good to see you
Nice
again.
to see you, man. Yeah, how you been? Did you... You enjoyed living in our house while we were on holiday, which is what you did?
I was doing a bit of house sitting and cat sitting, and yes, it was very good. Me and Finn the cat got on fine.
You didn't take Finn for a run in your car?
An absurdly large scratching post turned up at one point.
For you or for Finn?
For Finn.
There you go. And Richard, you've been on holiday as well, haven't you?
Yes, I went to the Americas for a couple of weeks.
All of them?
All of them. South, North.
Yeah. Middle,
Las Americas, which I think is in the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
Didn't go there.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what I did on my holidays. I went to America and it was very hot and very nice.
And that smuggling that you're doing is the reason that we've got
That's
a police
why,
siren chasing you.
This is a funny thing. I've mentioned on the show before I have a little baby boy now, and trying to get baby powder into a foreign country. It's not a relaxing experience because you're always thinking, oh, they're just going to assume that it's drugs, because what the ultimate bluff would be.
But it is,
to...
because, don't they usually cut cocaine with baby powder?
Do they really?
Yes, someone else said that to me, and they went, well, at the very least, they could assume you're just taking it to your supplier to cut with his product. Well, yeah, but I'm also holding a baby. It seems like a more plausible reason why I've got a big drum of baby powder.
That's just your cover. I mean, really.
But no, it was fine in the end. I didn't get arrested, but it's just one of those things where it's sort of not relaxing, because you're thinking, oh, they're going to unpack everything now.
I must have told you this story before about how I came through customs in Dover on the way back from a holiday in Spain once, and they took a look at me and my mate Vinny. You're looking like a likely pair of lads, and we were in the Lancia HPE at the time. We'd driven very quickly, and they said, right, lads, get out. And they took the car apart. They emptied everything out of every bag, and they took the door panels off the car, they took the seats out, and they put it back together, and they did a better job than Lancia did in the first place. Cleared all the rattles.
That's just reminded me of something very quickly. Do either of you want to spend £4,500 on a car that probably doesn't work and never will?
I saw your tweet earlier, and
Did you see this, Gareth?
I briefly considered looking for one of those years ago.
Your piazza, my friend.
What? I've missed this one.
On eBay, I think it was a Lancia Thema.
Oh, yes, the
832.
Ooh,
Get in
really?
in the UK. Yes, black, Alcantara interior. Inexplicably, no dashboard. The man had taken it out because it had cracked or something, and he'd got a new one but hadn't had time to put it in. But otherwise, all intact, and he claimed it ran very well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they ever did, even when they left the factory.
Yeah.
But what a rarity!
You've got your Lancia bodywork and Lancia electrics and
a 308 GTB engine. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, but a bodged around Ferrari engine.
They made to keep you busy on weekends.
They had to make it run the other way because the 832, because the Lancia Thema was front wheel drive. And that engine was never meant for such things. Do you know when you see a car like that, though, a really inadvisably silly car that probably will never work and that you don't need, but your first little flicker in the back of your mind is, ooh, I could ring that guy. No, I'm not going to ring the guy. Why would I ring the guy and go, hi, I'm ringing about the Lancia? Yeah, how is it?
You just want the experience of opening a bonnet and going,
Yeah, I just want to be able to tell people and say, Rich, what have you got at the moment? And I'll go, oh, well, we've got the Fiat and then we've got the Merc, but I've also got a Lancia Thema 832 with a Ferrari engine in it. And people who know cars would go, oh, interesting.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
I think other people would go, a what? You go, well, what it is, it's a large 1980s Italian executive saloon with the engine from a Ferrari. And where are you going? Come back! No!
Yeah, we would have lost them. But they're all also left-hand drive, aren't they?
All left-hand drive. This was apparently an ex-Switzerland car, but not that really matters. And it had, of course, the rising boot spoiler. I think the first production car that had that. And, but I remember as a kid and reading about that in Car Magazine and just being absolutely fascinated. I think they ran 2 photos, one with it in its retracted position and one with it up. It was a really clunky thing, and I think that in order to work, it had an enormous sort of box on the underside of the boot lid that ruined the boot space. But still, what a thing.
A whole lot of weight.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
a long tradition of Lancias with Ferrari engines, and in some ways vice versa as well for the racing cars. Do you remember?
Motorsport, yeah.
Anyway, holidays. I was on holiday in North Wales camping, and incredibly I'd forgotten about Formula One. I'd forgotten that it was the Belgian Grand Prix. Can you imagine such a thing? But it suddenly came to me, it was about 5 to 1, and we were all going down to the river like Bruce Springsteen did once, down to have lunch down by the river. So we were all carrying all this stuff down, and I thought, my God, it's 1 o'clock. Grand Prix on. So I reached for my solar radio, powered it up, and held the radio to get reception. And in the 2.5 minutes it took for me to walk from the campsite down to the river, I heard the start. It's very Cardiff, that wasn't it? Heard the start of the race on the radio. And it sounded great. There was dicing. It was all very exciting. And after the first couple of laps, we arrived, and I had to join this big dinner party that we were having. So I turned off and thought, don't need to worry about that. That's all going very well. And it seems, at the very moment I turned the radio off, that's where the race really got going.
Yeah, well...
I haven't seen the race
where the
yet.
race sort of pretty much stopped for one of those drivers.
Yeah.
What happened? Nico hit Lewis or didn't move out of his way? What? I don't know. Tell me. I know vagaries.
I mean, briefly, yes, it was a racing incident in which 2 drivers fighting for a position collided.
Yeah.
If they hadn't been teammates, and if it hadn't been the second lap of the race, your reaction would be, racing incident, that's what happens when one driver is trying to pass another.
Yep.
If it's teammates and it's the second lap of the race, it's a clear-cut case of Nico being clumsy and not being as careful as he should have been at that point, at that time.
Was he clumsy? Because, as I
he was.
understand, Lewis said that Nico said...
Well,
like being in school, that he did it deliberately to prove a point.
Well, at this point we're getting into he said this and reported commentary, but as far as I can make out, that's Lewis's take on what Nico said in a heated discussion with other members of the Mercedes team after the race, and maybe a slightly more reliable account of what he said was that he didn't deliberately hit him, but he did deliberately fight hard for the place.
Yeah.
He was making a point about being a tough racer, I think, was the sense of what he was saying.
It looked to me, initially, like Rosberg actually turned in a bit more than he should have done to deliberately dink Hamilton's car. But on looking at the replay, I think what happened was Hamilton was committed to the corner. And Rosberg was right behind him. And if he was being cautious as his nose came alongside, he'd have wound off a bit of lock just to avoid that happening. Because, truth be told, he didn't know that Hamilton would get a puncture. The most likely outcome is that he would damage his own car more than Hamilton's car. So it would be a dumb thing to do. I mean, it was still a dumb thing to do. He should have backed out of it.
Yeah, that's why
it was
I
a
say it was
second, there's so much of the race still to go.
Yeah.
Why risk it?
He wasn't pulled up by the authorities for an avoidable accident then?
It was a racing incident. That's the thing. When it all comes down to it, it was a racing incident. I just think Rosberg was being a bit thick there, and that if he'd have played the long game, he could have overtaken Hamilton a bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Mercedes bosses, I think, are right to be pretty mad at him because it screwed up Hamilton's race. And we know that one thing you're not supposed to do as a racing driver is take your teammate out, have a collision with a teammate. And he broke that right at the start of the race. It wasn't deliberate. Sure, it was an accident. Yeah, it was a racing incident, but it's the kind of racing incident that's unacceptable between teammates that early in a race.
Yeah.
And maybe arguably doubly so when you're the team that is expecting to win every race.
That sort of thing happens generally with newer, younger bucks early on in their relationship, where they're elbows out to establish the pecking order. I remember Ralph and Fizzy having a same corner incident a very long time ago in the Jordans that Eddie Jordan went nuts about. I would imagine that Niki Lauda went very nuts about the whole thing. No, so that's not quite Lauda. I do better Lauda. What is Lauda's voice? I said, Lewis, don't be a stupid f***ing idiot. That's not bad for Lauda. Not a bad Lauda.
Nicky, please don't swear. What? Oh, sorry.
I like swearing. I love Nicky Lauda.
Between him and Toto Wolff.
I'm getting to like Toto Wolff more and more every time he comes
I
on the TV.
think he seems like tremendously good fun.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing.
And also smart. And
Yes.
I think they are absolutely right to have their stated policy of letting their two drivers race.
Yes.
And
good on them.
But then having
apart from
to
anything else, how
tell them off afterwards occasionally, well,
Yeah.
fine, as long as
But the
they're
thing is,
overall still up on the
Gives
deal.
us something to talk
You've
about,
got to
boys.
give them
isn't
the
it?
room. You've got to give them freedom.
Yeah.
Give them respect them enough to let them race up to that point. And Nico wasn't careful enough at that point.
And that's what happens, but he came out of it on top, and it just feels a little unfair somehow, because I think he was a bit of a div, and Hamilton was pretty much, for once, the innocent party here.
The upshot of all
Yeah.
this was that Ricciardo got in there again, didn't he? And
Yeah.
won the bloody race.
And it's now conceivable that somebody other than a Mercedes driver could win the driver's
I know.
championship.
He's the stalking horse, isn't
it's
he?
It's very
It's fantastic.
unlikely, but it's conceivable.
Hey,
It could happen.
I mentioned this on Twitter, but I don't know if you saw it. I went to the Belgian Grand Prix, and I was in the paddock, and I was talking to someone my wife knows who works for Red Bull, and Ricciardo walked past with his PR handler, and this girl Katie I was talking to said, "Hey Dan, this is Richard, Sniff Petrol." And Ricciardo went, "Oh yeah, you're still riding about me?" With a big smile on his face, as he
Well, he always
does.
has, yeah.
And I was really embarrassed and went, I don't know what to say. And then he sort of gave me a little chuck on the arm and went, "Nah, you're all right, mate, love it." And it was the most.
You
I just
haven't
thought.
rude stuff about Ricciardo, have you?
I went back and checked just to make sure. I think.
It seems to me, it's respect.
Well, no, 'cause
it's
I
a
really like him as a-
respectfully, let's have a little joke.
Yeah, I think the last thing I wrote was that claiming that he was in trouble with his boss at the surf shack where he works for taking time off to race in Grand Prix. But that was the most recent thing. But yeah, he was great. And I just thought I like him because A, he seems to be very good at driving, and B, because he seems to really enjoy it, which I think is very endearing.
Yeah.
But now... He's my new hero. I swooned a little bit because I just thought, what a top bloke. And when he won the race, I was like, yes, that's my boy then. Oh, sorry. I was in the Mercedes hospitality. It was a bit...
I'm reminded of the phrase, "There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not been talked about." And Ricciardo et al. Would rather have been noticed and to appear in the excellent Sniff Petrol than not mentioned at all. Who was it who once said to me that people in the industry supply you cars for review, not so that they could appear on Sniff Petrol, it's so they don't appear in Sniff Petrol.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
God, I'm being bought off.
Who was it who said that?
I don't know. But tell me their name and I'll write a very rude thing about them. Another thing, actually, the same person I was talking to who works at Red Bull was desperate to introduce me to Christian Horner. And all I could think of was, oh God, I'd just been on Ted's qualifying notebook on the Sky F1 channel the day before, appearing in a rather appalling television appearance, doing an impression of Christian Horner as a Dutch DJ. And they were going, "Christian's just up there, I'll see if he's free, you should meet him, I was like, okay. And I didn't want to go, no, I don't want to meet him, because, clearly this is a great honour to meet someone who's got much more important things to do on a race day. And then thankfully he was busy, so I couldn't. But I was thinking, what if there's an off chance that he goes back to his hotel and goes, "I'm just going to catch up with Ted. Qualifying notebook," and oh no, this guy just said some really rude things about me. Okay, here's red box.
I noticed something
80s
about
reference
Christian
for you there,
Horner
Gareth.
on the Sky coverage.
Yeah.
A bit disappointing. He has one of those slightly naff cassette-shaped iPhone covers.
Does he?
Which he was
Really?
using on... Yeah, I thought...
And he's grown a beard as well.
And he always starts every sentence with, "Yeah, no."
Well, I said
Yeah,
that on the telly as
Did you?
well. Yeah, I nicked your observation,
It's-
which is an absolutely spot-on observation, but there is a bit of a strange conversational tick that he has.
I reckon he's from Bangor, because everyone in Bangor says, "Yes, no." "Oh, yes, no." Do that. He's secretly Welsh.
He'll end every sentence with "is it" in future. Yeah, is it? Here's Tina Turner.
Daniel, what's that in your headphones? Daniel? Oh, God, is it Gareth Jones on speed? They talking about you again? They saying stuff about you? Daniel, try not to smile too much. We still need to get the helmet on you later. Oh, no. I'm going to need the face clamps again.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
Is it me or are Formula One drivers getting younger every day? It's the sort of thing old people say, isn't it? Well, next year we're going to break a record, aren't we? Where Max Verstappen, son of my mate, Jos Verstappen, will drive when he is 17 years and, 3 pubic hairs old.
He turns 17 this month, I believe.
Yeah.
So he signed the deal as a 16-year-old. He will be 17 when he drives. So when the season starts March.
Really young.
Isn't he, I think, who was the youngest, previous record holder of the youngest driver ever in F1? And I think they were 19 or something.
No, 19.
No,
What,
19,
was it not
I
Daniel Kvyat? Was he the current? Or was there someone? No. There was someone else who held it before him. Oh no!
Kvyat?
Hey, write in and tell us.
Raikkonen was at one point.
Never knowingly over-researched. I don't know, I always thought Kvyat is 12 or thereabouts. He certainly looks it. I mean, he hasn't started shaving
right.
yet.
I mean,
He's doing all right,
yeah. People talk about, is it right for a driver that young to be coming to the sport? Are they going to be ready? Well, on the basis of Kvyat, he's so far youngest driver to date, and he's the youngest driver of course of all the recent intake. Done perfectly well for himself, very respectable. Let's give back a chance, see what he does. I mean, yes, 17 seems crazy young for an F1 driver, but the physical demands are probably a bit less than they used to be, so there's less physical demand on it. If he has the experience in other racing, if he's been karting for long enough, and he has done well in his brief period in junior Formula E, let's give him a chance.
He's certainly karted long enough, because Jos runs their own karting circuit, and indeed got into trouble for punching someone at that circuit, I believe.
Who? Jos did?
Jos did a few years ago. Yes.
I remember
someone dared to question that he wasn't the boss. He sorted them right out.
Somebody did crack the joke that Jos had thrown a punch at this guy, but fortunately for the potential victim, he was standing right on the apex of the corner.
He missed it.
But,
do you remember Jos Verstappen's World of Gravel? I seem to remember that from...
What is this like a chain of Dutch stores or something?
It was just... It must have been...
He's definitely the boss of those.
Yeah, it must have been F1 Racing or something.
Of grades of gravel under one roof.
It was just shots of Jos
personally harvested from my shade pods.
This is normal.
I welcome Max into Formula One.
I just think of Jos Verstappen on fire. I was a terrible incident at the time. But
he was in A1 Grand Prix when I was the pit lane reporter. He drove for the Dutch team, and I loved Jos's frankness and honesty. He was probably the only genuinely honest person on that grid, and swore all the time. And when he swore, he apologised, and then swore again whilst he was apologising.
What's known these days as loudering.
Loudering, that's right, yes. Yeah, I can't stop it.
Jos the boss, is he quite a sort of party animal?
He did stay up with me until 4 o'clock in the morning in China. So, yeah, but I think...
Because he looks like he's lived a life.
A little bit, yeah. I don't know.
Not in a bad way, you think...
Looks like he's enjoying himself.
Jos has blown the profits from World of Gravel in many excellent places.
Tough family, I think, Jos. From a tough Dutch family, yeah. He seemed pretty darn sober at 4 o'clock in the morning, which rather does suggest that he is a bit of a party animal, that he can drink and drink and drink without getting drunk. He seemed very sober. I got on great with him. I loved him to bits. But I welcome Max to F1, but I don't think it's right. I think he's missing out on at least a year's experience. He may be super quick, and he may put the frighteners up a lot of drivers in F1, as many of the young drivers are doing at the moment, but I just think when you're 17, you can burn the toast when you're making a cup of tea when you're 17. You can put the pizza in the oven still in its polystyrene wrapper when you're 17. You can sleep with a girl and get her pregnant the first time you sleep with a girl when you're 17. Yeah. You make these ridiculous mistakes.
And you can win Olympic gold medals, and you can write extraordinary, genius works of music.
Yes. Thank you very much. I wrote a lot when I was 17.
It's,
yeah, and also what 17-year-olds have is, as we see in town centres every Friday night, 17-year-olds are fearless.
True.
Which is why they're always climbing up scaffolding and getting into scraps and things like that. And in a way, you want that from a driver. I'd rather see that, and as long as it's sort of tempered with some fundamental talent, than a sort of lily-livered cautiousness that
he's clearly
doesn't go for gaps and that doesn't try the things that you see the true greats doing, the attempting to go around the outside and the stuff that people like Hamilton and Alonso do, wise old dogs that they are compared to Verstappen, but they've still got that sort of sense of bravery and daring do, which you want from drivers.
Interesting you mentioned Alonso there. He was one of the drivers who held the youngest ever Formula One driver thing when he drove for Minardi in 1471, I think it was, after the Renaissance. So here's the question: does coming in as a youngster allow you to continue driving like a sort of a challenger, or do you mature? Whereas drivers who come in later think, I've waited for a long time for my chance, I'm going to be careful now. They are then careful for the rest of their career. Button was very young.
Yeah, but I think it's also, partly it's got to be down to personality. That's the thing. I think maybe, for example, Button, you don't see so much of that gung-ho, I'll give this a go and see if I can make it stick. Or that sort of, I suspect, again, with Hamilton, with Alonso, there's a sense of, I'm so good at this, I'm going to make this stick. You know, the thing that George Best apparently said when people said, why do you never pass the ball? And he said, well, something to the effect of, I look around and I'm the best person on the pitch to have the ball. And that, brilliant self-belief, and you sort of need that. And I mean, it sounds arrogant, but it's also, if you can prove it by being brilliant, then why not?
That self-belief is great as long as there is sufficient talent to back it up. You know,
yes, Eddie Irvine being sort of...
if you have that self-belief without the ability, you're a disaster.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, again, as I said, Eddie Irvine. Yeah. Which is that sort of incredible bulletproof self-belief, but never quite backed up with necessarily consistent brilliance.
Well, he came third in the World Championship in '99, didn't he?
Have you seen Ron Dennis doing this ice bucket challenge thing that's going on and on and on and on?
No, I did see that he'd done it, but I haven't seen it.
I heard that Button had done it, and I know that Lewis has done it.
Sorry, I'm going to be smug again, but when I was at the Belgian Grand Prix,
hello.
And when I was in the paddock,
hello.
it was littered with puddles with ice in them because of all the drivers and all the team bosses doing the ice bucket challenge. And it's got a bit much now. It's all for a very good cause, but I mean, really, this thing's got to fizzle out. But thankfully, it did not fizzle out before Ron did it, because it's the most extraordinary thing.
Did he have special ice? A special, special?
I'm not sure.
Precision machined aluminium bucket.
Yes, the bucket looked pretty pristine.
And the temperature of the ice had to be exactly -3
I'd imagine there was a
degrees.
development programme. That's why he's quite late to doing it, because of all the research. But most people, when you watch these videos, if they're doing it right and it really is iced water, they react quite violently when it gets dumped over their head, because it's colder than you expect, I would imagine. But not a flinch. He's wearing his suit and sitting at his desk. It's poured over his head, and then he goes, "Oh, that's cold," in the manner of a robot that's been programmed to say something that it's not feeling. Please, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's brilliant.
Respect to the Ron stuff.
I know,
for being able to.
I know. Well, that's the thing.
That.
I think he's an extraordinary man in a number of ways. I don't mean that flippantly, but his ability to resist iced water is possibly his greatest superpower.
Whereas if you poured that over Max Verstappen, would you get all the expletives that his dad has taught him?
Oh, well, one would hope so.
That would be a great thing.
So about this, I suppose one of the questions is, do you object to him being there, lack of experience, but also because you believe maybe that he's taking a seat that could be given to a more experienced driver?
I think they're putting excess pressure on someone. I think he'll do well. I think he would do better, and therefore the team would do better if they gave him a year of test driving, get to know the machinery. I believe he's already crashed in a
he's
demo
doing a demo.
recently.
I know, it's a funny one that though, because it's really weird. It looks like he just sort of drives it straight into the barrier, and I suspect that he couldn't see the barrier perhaps, or that he got wrong-footed by the clutch or the anti-stall or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it's too odd. Someone who'd never driven a car before with a couple of minutes of practice wouldn't make such an elementary mistake as just going into a wall, because you've got the brakes. I think something else happened, and of course it's a bit embarrassing for him. It's his first time publicly in that car, or on the old cars, I think, and he smacks it into a wall and knocks the front wing off.
Yeah, but
they fixed it again. It wasn't fundamental, so you know.
Talking about new drivers, the rumours about McLaren getting a new driver for next year for the Honda period have resurfaced again over Alonso going back to McLaren. I'm still finding that hard to imagine. I think there's a greater game there. I think they're just unsettling. I don't know what McLaren will do.
They're very open about wanting to sign some top talent if they can get Vettel, or if they can get...
To draw in top talent, you have to design a top car, and they've conspicuously failed to do that for a bit, haven't they? So
Kobayashi is available now, thanks to losing his seat in Caterham.
No, hang on, he's getting it back again, isn't he? The next race? Lotterer was just a one-off.
But he may be in the car at... Monza as well, I think.
We're recording this before Monza.
Because he didn't get a fair crack, did he? Because of,
so maybe they've gone back to sponsors and said, come on, that didn't work out, let's make it happen at this rate. But I think that's still up in the air.
Can you imagine the phone conversations, though, if they're happening between Ron Dennis and Alonso? What would Ron have to say to Alonso that could bring him back to McLaren?
No, I think it's the other way around. I think it's what could Alonso say to Ron that would make him say, OK, you can come back
I promise not to stab you in the back this time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
that's true. But I said at the Belgian Grand Prix, I said on Twitter something about, because I was in a room when Jenson Button came in and did one of those Q&A sessions with a journalist, and he's really good in a room. He was really chatty. He was funny, relaxed. Later on, Hamilton came in, did the same deal, was really edgy, a bit stroppy, and it was a shame because he drew the biggest crowd. And I said on Twitter, Button's really good in a room, he'll make a great pundit one day. And loads of people replied with, you mean next year? So I think there's this sort of feeling amongst F1 fans that Button's days are numbered, which seems a shame.
Don't think Ron loves him, does he?
Don't think so, no. I mean, he was more Whitmarsh's man than Ron's, and with the end of the Whitmarsh era, and maybe there's less enthusiasm for Button in the management at McLaren. He's getting on, he's an older driver now. And
he's very good in the right circumstances, but I think he's one of those drivers that, if the car's not with him, he gets a bit flustered, doesn't he? And
he needs the right conditions. He needs a certain sort of range of conditions or certain conditions to really shine. But on his day, he's terrific.
He's dependable to come out.
I think he's more than dependable though, because he
has flashes of brilliance.
Changing conditions. When the track's in that sort of in-between state, there are spots like that where he is outstanding, and where you don't, for a moment, question why a team like McLaren would want to bring him on board and have him lead the team.
No, absolutely. But if I was a team like Sky F1, I'd be just, Jensen, are you around next? You busy? So do you want to anyway? Look, here's my card. Give us a call if there's anything that you want. The question I was going to raise is though, yes, Button's there and capable of great things, and there's no reason why McLaren wouldn't want to keep him if they, if there was nothing.
If they didn't have a better option, I think that
I also got to raise the question: what about Ken Magnussen? I mean, he's not exactly sparkled in that admittedly not very sparkling car. But
didn't he out-qualify Button?
He has done, yeah.
At Spa, I think he did.
I think he's certainly done well enough that you'd want to see how he's done by the end of the season at least. I think he was certainly too aggressive in Belgium defending his position. He pretty much put Button and Alonso off the road at different times. I'm surprised he didn't get penalised.
I always think that the way to identify whether a driver is going to keep their drive for next year or not towards the end of the season is if their performance level changes. If it stays the same, the drive as they always did, then they've kept their drive. But if their driving suddenly becomes fantastic, or if the driving suddenly becomes appalling, it means that they've lost their drive for next year. Because either suddenly you find the speed to prove to the other teams that you're worth having, or you're so demolished that you just drive as slow as Max Chilton. Did I say that out loud then? Sorry.
I think with Magnussen, with Verstappen coming in, with Rosberg, there's essentially, I reckon by 2019, basically there'll be a new rule that you have to be the son of a former driver, which is tremendous news for Leo Mansell.
Hello, I am Dave Mansell. Please, could I have a drive, please?
Go away, Tacky!
Oh.
Gareth Jones on Speed.
It's such a shame that this episode of Gareth Jones on Speed is an audio podcast and not a video podcast, because if you could see me now in my horizontally striped, open-necked Breton shirt,
we'd all feel that you were missing a bicycle, a string of onions, and a beret.
Johnny Winus. There was a guy in my hometown, Holywell in North Wales, who was Breton, and he sold onions, and he wore a stripy top.
No.
Yeah, really. Before I was born, this is my grandmother used to tell me about this. He used to ride a bike with onions on it, black and white striped top, and he spoke Breton, because he was Breton, not French, because the people of Britain like to consider themselves a bit like the Welsh, Oh, no, we're not English, And Breton, they like to separate themselves, much as the Welsh do. The Breton people say, oh, no, we're not French, we're Breton, even though they are French and they can speak French. But they do speak Breton, which is a P-Celtic language exactly like Welsh, and is too removed from Welsh. So when we went over to Brittany recently, where I bought this shirt, we were staying in a place called Tŷ Nadan's house, and all the places are called things like Cergroes. And it's basically Welsh with a French accent. It's so close to Welsh. I felt really, really at home, but I felt most at home because I was driving a French car while I was there as well. I had this Citroën, let me get it right, Grand C4 Picasso. It's not the C4 Grand Picasso.
Is it really?
No, it's the Grand C4 Picasso. This one, which is only slightly longer.
I don't understand that.
Yeah,
Grand
anyway.
C4.
Grand. Oh no, not the C4 Picasso. You want the Grand C4 Picasso.
I just suddenly found myself thinking, how many other cars are named after explosives?
Picasso.
Oh, C4.
C4. Composition 4.
Really? Is that
Yeah,
dynamite? What? No?
It's a form of plastic explosive.
Is it?
I
How did you know
don't-
that, see?
I
just
knew
happen to
that as
know
well,
a certain
yeah.
amount
Sort of,
about
that's
explosives.
actually kind of
It's just a military plastic
Ford
explosive.
Fiesta
yeah.
of explosives, isn't it? It's everywhere.
Yeah,
It's,
pretty much. Yeah. It's just a
a
basic
bestseller.
demolition.
They're always talking about it in like Bruce Willis movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, Comp 4, C4. you know,
I don't know the
so-
names of any other explosives.
There's never been
TNT.
never
They
been
did
a
Try not to
parcels,
tolerate
don't
me.
never been an Audi TT TNT edition or anything like that.
Not that I know of. No.
I got a
I'm
great
still a bit intrigued by this man who lived in your hometown.
yeah, Shawnee Winus.
But
Johnny the Onions, Shawnee Winus.
Johnny Onions.
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Onions?
Yeah.
I bet he knew his...
So we have no kind of sort of cliches at all, or
No,
anything, or any,
there are
any-
two
or
things
any,
that
any
intrigue me about
stereotypes.
this.
Kind of,
First of all, he wore a stripy jersey
colliding
and
in one
sold
person.
onions.
Yeah.
I believe that he was actually having you all on.
He's probably a Welshman pretending to be French, wasn't it?
Did he ever say oi 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 in a comical way?
No, he probably
And if
said
you
something
ask-
very,
Shrug a lot.
very
if, you,
Welsh.
if you asked him to speak French, did he just turn the accent up a bit?
Yes, I think that's probably what he did. Also,
Well, this is how I speak French.
This is
my
French.
native language. How dare you say
question
it?
this is outrageous. I throw onions at you. And also, if he spoke Breton, which you said was too removed from Welsh,
Yeah.
was he actually, his life was a living hell as he couldn't be understood or understand anyone?
No, he could be understood very well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, too removed from
is
Welsh.
still okay.
So-
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know,
As
you've
long
got-
as he spoke Breton with a Welsh accent,
Yeah,
he
you're
was
there.
completely
Yeah,
understood.
and if I spoke Welsh with a French accent, the Breton people would understand me. It's as close as that. It really is. Cornish is basically Welsh with a West Country accent. The example being that the Welsh word for Merry Christmas is Nadolig Llawen. The Welsh words for Merry
Yes.
Christmas. The Cornish expression for Merry Christmas is Nadolig Llawen. Which is the same thing, just said with a West Country accent like that, and the soft and double L's to it.
There are no Cornish speakers left, though, are there?
Not native. Well, yes, there are children whose parents speak Cornish, who've learnt it academically, who speak Cornish at home now, and the Welsh were instrumental in bringing back Cornish. But the last living native Cornish speaker, what was her name? Dolly Pentreath, died in the 18th century. But the Cornish language is in a revival. And if you go to Cornwall now and you put your money in a bank machine, you can have the instructions in
Really?
Cornish if you want, which I can read.
I never thought I'd
That's
say
something
this,
that's-
but can we get back to the
pretty
Citroen
pointless.
Picasso?
That really is pretty
I
pointless.
never thought you'd say. Well, I felt right at home. I felt right at home because I was in the part of France where they speak the nearest thing to Welsh there is, apart from Cornish. And also, there were loads. I know it's heightened awareness. If you're driving a car, you'll notice all the others around as well. But there were many, not Grand Picassos, but C4 Picassos, and the previous generation Grand Picasso, which had terrible suspension, I'm told.
That was an awful car,
Yeah,
yes.
but not this one. This one was fab. They've made it a lot simpler, haven't they? They've done away with classic Citroen suspension.
The old one had self-levelling rear axle that failed.
Mhm.
There's one that parks near my office at the Beeb that just sits there sagged onto its arse, like an old Citroen with hydro
Yeah.
pneumatics,
It's meant to do that.
doesn't. It's just because the suspension's failed.
Well, the only thing that went wrong with this car was one stray bit of plastic, which we couldn't even work out where it came from, was just floating around in the car. Like, that's clearly off something. We cannot work out where it's from. It's clearly the right plastic. Couldn't match it. The rest of the time, it was fab. And I'm saying this from a man who was horribly unimpressed with the last Citroen I drove, which was that DS5 Hybrid 4. Quite right.
I've driven that. It's a woeful car, isn't
I
it?
was astonished. I think it's a beautiful car.
Yes, it's a terrific looking car. but
Useless
just
bit of
horrid.
engineering, lovely
Yeah.
bit of styling. Whereas this, I would go as far as to say that this was as good as an S-Max. I know the S-Max is, what, 8 years old now?
getting on.
Yeah, but I couldn't fault it. I couldn't unsettle it, and I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to be a great handling car. It's an MPV, but there were occasions in Brittany where, you know, the kids in the back are going, "Yeah, go on, Dad," and Violet's going, "Gareth, slow down," you know, and I couldn't unsettle it. I couldn't. I was trying to unsettle it. I couldn't. And I was genuinely...
What were you doing to unsettle it? Like telling it that there was a nuclear war on the way if Ukraine carried on in this manner with Russia?
Getting a little bit drunk, making it watch Eraserhead or something.
Yeah.
Other cars in your range aren't as good as you. No, that's the opposite of unsettling. Yeah. No, I couldn't shake it. And it was properly easygoing on the auto routes. Yeah, properly easygoing. Low stress. You know, it's got this monster windscreen. If you see the pictures of it, you can see a huge panoramic roof it's got and this monster windscreen. But it has this nice thing where the sun visors, as well as folding down, slide up into a slot as well, giving you what feels like being in the canopy of a Bell 47G, you know, the helicopters that never start a mash, a big glass bubble. You really are completely exposed in it. And it was lovely for watching, you know, French wind turbines go by and stuff. Everything was effortless in this car. It was a very low stress car. Maybe it was just the mood I was in because we were in a lovely holiday environment. But it didn't seem complicated. It didn't seem stressed. It has the grace that I suppose Citroens of past are known for. You know, you're a Citroen-esque kind of guy, so
I've owned one Citroen in the past, aspired to own a couple of others, but I've never got my hands on a Light 15. I'd still love to have a Light 15 at some point. I had a quick look at it before you headed off, actually. I remember we had a little chat about it. And it made,
what it looks like. Like the last one.
I think it's a looker. I think it's really nicely proportioned. It makes a great first impression. Yeah. I mean, I didn't get a chance to take a ride in it, but I like what I saw.
I still struggle with electric handbrakes these days, or automatic handbrakes, because the way that they work, you know, you push to put it on, pull to release, just seems the wrong way round to me.
I haven't lived with an electric parking brake for very long, but I found them pretty awkward, to be honest.
It had it all. And the screen, yeah. All right, okay, there's one thing about the car I think is a missed opportunity. It's got this massive, I think, TFT display on
for the navigation and all of your
but half of it is given over to just a really nice landscape picture. I kid you not. And you can change what that landscape is as well.
And it never shows anything else.
No, you can
that
choose.
Screen is never used for that part of the screen is never used for anything else.
Most of the time, not. Most of the time, not. It will double up occasionally if you've got the sat nav and it needs to tell you to turn. But most of the time, it's a pretty thing to look at.
I think that's the same screen that's in the Peugeot 308 now, isn't it?
I haven't done the 308 at all.
It's the one where the temperature adjustment is on the screen. That one. I think it's the same platform of car, so I think it is. But you can divvy around with the settings and do all sorts of play tunes on it, because you can change the whole background as well, can't you?
Yes. There are 3 different layouts for the screen. I like the, synthetic speedo thing on this. You know, we had it on the Jag as well. I wasn't that impressed with the Jag. It still looks like a graphic. And in a Jag, which is a very premium car, you'd expect to have something better. But on a Citroen, which is not a premium car, you can get away with that slightly more graphic look. And I think it was good for that. And there were 3 different versions of it that you could choose. They were all perfectly good. You know, one bit more digital, one bit more analogue. And I've mentioned this before. Do you remember the Chrysler Grand Voyager that I had last year? Had sort of underfloor storage under the back. Well, the Citroen's got it as well. There's loads of underfloor secret storage. And in fact, there is one secret storage on this car too far, because a few days after the car was collected, I was gathering up all our stuff from camping here, and I couldn't find my passports. The whole family's passports at all. Oh God, I went through everything, couldn't find it. All right, it must be in the car. So I called up Citroen and said, you know that car that I just had from you? Said, would you do me a favour and go into the security box that they've got under the driver's seat? I bet it's in there, because I remember putting it in there on the way back. We went to Brighton for the day, left it in NCP, all putting passports in there. So the guy from Citroen went out and looked around and no, can't find it, it's not there. So, oh God, what have I done? You know, I've dropped my passport somewhere, done something. And then I got a phone call out of the blue the next day. Is that Gareth Jones? Yeah. Oh, my name is, forgive me, I've forgotten the chap's name, another motoring writer who just had a Citroen Grand C4 delivered and was looking round all the cubby holes, went underneath the driver's seat and found 4 passports. and mine had my phone number in it. He phoned me to let me know. So you can guarantee that the security of that slot there is either so very good that your passports and valuables become invisible when they're in there, which is why Citroën couldn't found it, or the lad who looked in the wrong car. I don't know which.
Who knows?
But I tell you, I was proper impressed. I'm glad Citroën have got their mojo back. I can't wait to drive the Cactus, the C4 Cactus.
Oh, I've got one of those coming next week.
Have you? Can I come and play with it?
No.
Oh.
Oh, all right then.
Hey!
I think it's next week or the week after,
I
yes.
it's got
I
to
know.
be brown. Get a brown one. Get a brown one.
I don't know what's coming. I just asked them nicely if I could borrow one, because it's an interesting car, isn't it? It's a very interesting car.
A nice minimal
to look at.
automobile.
Yes, that's the thing. I like the whole idea of it. Lightness
I think
and
they'll do
simplicity
well.
and- yes, I hope they do well, because if they do well, it'll encourage them to do more of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that it potentially could polarise people. I've seen one in the flesh on display at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and it's an interesting looking thing, but I don't know whether maybe people will be put off a little bit by its
kookiness,
its whackiness. Yeah, but I hope not, because the world needs more interesting cars.
I've got a theory about that. I think when you first see it, like a lot of cars, when you first see them, if they are a little bit wacky, they look really wacky. But almost from the second time you've seen them, having seen them for the first time, they stop being wacky. They just become interesting. And I think that car will do well for that.
Well, it does, yeah, and also ubiquity kind of takes the edge off, doesn't it? I mean, remember the original Ford Ka seemed like something quite extraordinary and off the wall when it first came out, and now, I mean, they're just street furniture, aren't they? You wouldn't look at one twice and they're more than a lamppost, but when they first came out, they were pretty exceptional.
And also there's the issue of designers, if they've got their antenna properly tuned, they see design trends and they know what's sort of happening in taste. They anticipate the way that tastes are going to go, and so that revolutionary cutting-edge look 1 year, 5 years later, suddenly that car looks more acceptable and looks more tasteful and looks more regular because everyone else is caught up and everyone is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's certainly pretty, I think. And hasn't it come a long way? Do you remember when that car, or that car's grandfather, parents, I don't know, it was the Zara Picasso when it first came out.
There was a concept of the original Picasso, and then it came out. They're one of the worst driven cars on the road, I find, those Zara Picassos. Aren't they? The original ones are sort of kind of like a swoopy arch shape that was sort of immortalised in what's that Welsh sitcom?
Yeah,
Gavin and Stacey, and Bryn has one, the Rob Brydon character. But yeah, they're always driven really badly, I think, because
there's a lot of them.
Up there with X5s and those horrible minivans.
No, but a different kind of bad driving. X5 is sort of very aggressive and rather... word I can't say, but Zara Picasso is inattentive. You sort of course the school of driving. People who find driving an awful chore and they'd rather not do it, but they're forced to do it and they just do it badly because they're not interested.
Yeah, it's not caring enough and caring too much. Kind of the two extremes.
Yes.
Well, or a certain kind of caring too much. Anyway,
but not caring enough about what people think of them. In X5s, and we think, well, we know what we think of them.
I thought I was French the whole time. Actually, I thought it was Breton, not French at all.
What, so you drove incredibly briskly across country with a fag on the go?
Yeah, of course.
In a small hat.
Looking dismissive of things, generally.
Oh, I told you this, I've mentioned this before, but I was once, I think, in the Loire Valley, and I was driving up this sort of small side of a valley near where we were staying, in a Renault Megane hire car, I think, and then I saw in the mirror a Citroën BX in the distance. And when I looked in the mirror again on the next straight, the BX was a bit closer. And then the next straight, sort of round a hairpin, next straight, BX is really closing in now. And then it was only when I went around the next corner and then looked back and I saw the BX actually coming around a corner rather than head on that I noticed that it was towing a small trailer. And I was like, bloody hell, it's really clipping along that BX, because I wasn't hanging around. I'd sort of got to know the road from staying in the area for a week. I've got to keep my toe in here. No, the BX is up. The BX is behind me. The road sort of got to the top, levelled out. We've got onto a flat bit where he's not sort of working uphill. The BX overtook me. Still towing the trailer, driven by a man who looked about 120 years old. He had a face like a sort of deflated basketball and a tiny little cap on, and he could barely see over the wheel, and he was driving it like Alain Prost. It was a breathtaking thing to behold. And the window was down a bit, so I'm guessing he had a Galois on the go as well. Sir, I salute you.
It had to be a Citroën, because I think of the three French brands, Renault, Citroën and Peugeot, I think Citroën are the most French because they're kind of modern, and the French have a good relationship with modern technology.
Yeah, I think they are.
TGV, Pompidou Centre.
They're the most forward-looking in that sense. Yeah,
yes.
they're the most French, and they're the ultimate French consumer motoring brand. For motorsport, Renault undoubtedly have them trailing using the dust. Citroën can't hold a candle to Renault, and Peugeot certainly can make some more exciting road cars. But in terms of your actual regular road car for your regular French dude or
Yeah.
dudette.
If you could serve
Citroen all the way.
Citroen, their Frenchness could be best encapsulated by a man in a stripy jersey
Eating cheese.
cycling round Holywell with a basket of onions on front of a bicycle in some way or other. And
Whistling a Vanessa Paradis
on that
tune.
continually confusing note, probably time to end, isn't it?
I think I'm confusing this show with Top Gear there, aren't you?
No, there was no bombshell.
You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
To the Zong.
Goodbye.
Me, Johnny Winus, Gareth, Jones. I got 38 miles to the gallon, you know. I don't know what that is in litres, but it was all right.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!